Hello again, everybody. Moby Dick by Herman, Melville, chapter 18, maybe 19, we'll see. I'm in the Cloud House Cafe in Stow again. I've just had a delicious bacon and brie and cranberry panini. Absolutely very nice indeed. So, I can recommend the place. I really can for a good lunch, certainly. Alright, chapter 18, His Mark. As we were walking down the end of the wharf towards the ship, Keekeg carrying his harpoon, Captain Peleg in his gruff voice loudly hailed us from his wigwam, saying he had not suspected my friend was a cannibal, and furthermore announcing that he had no cannibals on board that craft unless they previously produced their papers. "What do you mean by that, Captain Peleg?" said I, now jumping on the bulwarks and leaving my comrades standing on the wharf. How does Peleg sound again? Anyway. "I mean," he replied, "that he must show his papers." "Yeah," said Captain Bildad in his hollow voice, sticking his head from behind Peleg's out of the wigwam. "He must show that he's converted, son of darkness." He added, turned to Keekeg. "Art thou at present in communion with any Christian church?" "Why," said I, "he's a member of the First Congregational Church. Here be it said that many tattooed savages sailing in Nantucket ships at last come to be converted into the churches." "First Congregational Church?" cried Bildad. "What? That worships in Deacon Deuteronomy Coleman's meeting house." And so saying, taking out his spectacles, he rubbed them with great yellow bandana handkerchief, and putting them on very carefully, came out of the wigwam and leaned stiffly over the bulwarks to get a long good look at Keekeg. How long hath he been a member?" He then said, turning to me. "Not very long, I rather guess, young man." "No," said Peleg, "and he hasn't been baptized right either, or it would have washed some of that devil's blue off his face." "Do tell now," cried Bildad. "Is this Philistine a regular member of Deacon Deuteronomy's congregational meeting? I never saw him going there, and I pass it every Lord's Day." "Oh, I don't know anything about Deacon Deuteronomy or his meeting," said I. "All I know is that Keekeg here is a born member of the First Congregational Church. Is a deacon himself, Keekeg is." "Young man," said Bildad sternly, "thou art skylarking with me. Explain thyself, thou young Hittite. What church dost thou mean? Answer me." Finding myself thus pushed hard, I replied, "I mean, sir, the same ancient Catholic church to which you and I and Captain Peleg there and Keekeg here and all of us and every mother's son and soul of us belong. The great and everlasting first congregation of this whole worshipping world. We all belong to that, only some of us cherish more crochets nowadays, no ways touching the grand belief. In that we all join hands." "Splice, I mean, thou spliced hands," cried Peleg, drawing nearer. "Young man, you better ship for a missionary instead of a foremast hand. I never heard a better sermon. Deacon Deuteronomy, why, Father Maple himself couldn't beat it. And he's reckoning something. Come aboard. Never mind about the papers, I say. Tell Keekog there. Tell Quahog there. It says, yes, Quahog. What's that you call him? Tell Quahog to step along. By the great anchor, what a harpoon he's got there. Looks good stuff, that, and he handles it about right, I say. Quahog, or whatever your name is, did you stand in the head of a whaleboat? Did you ever strike a fish?" Without saying a word, Keekeg, in his wild sort of way, jumped upon the bulwarks, from thence into the bows of one of the whaleboats hanging on the side, and then bracing his left knee and poising his harpoon, cried out in some such way as this: "Captain, when you see him small drop tar on water there, you see him, well, suppose him one whale eye, well then." And taking a sharp aim at it, he darted the iron right over old Bildad's broad brim, clean across the ship's decks, and struck the glistening tar spot out of sight. "Now," said Keekeg, quietly hauling in the line, "suppose ye him whaley eye, why, that whale dead." Quick, Bildad, said Peleg, his partner, who, aghast at the close vicinity of the flying harpoon, had retreated towards the captain gangway. Quick, I say, you, Bildad, and get the ship's papers. We must have the hedgehog there, Quahog, in one of our boats. Look ye, Quahog, we'll give ye the 19th lay. That's more than ever was given any harpooner yet out of Nantucket. So down we went into the cabin, and to my great joy Keekeg was soon enrolled among the same ship's company to which I myself belonged. More coffee. When all preliminaries were over, and Peleg had got everything ready for signing, and turned to me and said, I guess Quahog there didn't know how to write, does he? I say, Quahog, blast ye, dost thou sign thy name or make thy mark? But at this, Keekeg, who had twice or thrice before taken part in similar ceremonies, looked no ways abashed, but taking the offered pen, copied upon the paper in the proper place an exact counterpart of a queer round figure which was tattooed upon his arm, so that, through Captain Peleg's obstinate mistake touching his appellative, it looked something like this. You see the little mark? It's like a little kind of a Maltese cross there, sort of thing. Kind of round and, yeah, almost like an iron cross, yeah. Meanwhile, Captain Bildad sat earnestly and steadfastly eyeing Keekeg, and at last rising solemnly and fumbling in the huge pockets of his broad-skirted drab coat, took out a bundle of tracts and selected one entitled The Latter Day Coming, or No Time to Lose, placed it in Keekeg's hands, and then grasping him and the book with both his, looked earnestly into his eyes and said, Son of darkness, I must do my duty by thee. I am part owner of this ship, and feel concerned for the souls of all its crew. If thou still clingest to thy pagan ways, which I sadly fear, I beseech thee remain not for I a belief. A Belial bondsman, sorry. So I'll read that again. Remain not for I a Belial bondsman. Spurn the idol Bel and the hideous dragon. Turn from the wrath to come. Mind thine eye. I say, oh goodness gracious, steer clear of the fiery pit. Something of the sea salt yet lingered in old Bildad's language, heterogeneously mixed with scriptural and domestic phrases. Avast there, Bildad. Avast now spoiling our harpooner, cried Peleg. Pious harpooners never make good voyagers. It takes the shark out of them. No harpooner is worth a straw who ain't pretty sharkish. There was young Nat Swain, once the bravest boat-header out of all Nantucket and the Vineyard. He enjoyed the meeting and never came to good. He got so frightened about his plaguey soul that he shrinked and sheered away from the whales for fear of afterclaps in case he got stove and went to Davy Jones. Peleg, said Bildad, lifting his hands and eyes, thou thyself, as I myself, hast seen many a perilous time. Thou knowest, Peleg, what it is to have a fear of death. How then canst thou prate in this ungodly guise? Thou beliest thine own heart, Peleg. Tell me when this same Pequod here had her 3 masts overboard in that typhoon on Japan, the same voyage when thou went mate with Captain Ahab, didst thou not think of death and then judgment then? Hear him now, said Peleg, marching across the cabin and thrusting his hands down into his pockets. Hear him, all of ye, think of that. When every moment we thought the ship would sink, death and judgment then. What? All 3 masts making such an everlasting thundering against the tide, and every sea breaking over us fore and aft, think of death and judgment then? No time to think about death then. Life was what Captain Ahab and I were thinking of, and how to save all hands, how to rig jury masts, how to get into the nearest port. That's what I was thinking of. Bildad said no more, but buttoning up his coat, stalked on deck where we followed him. There he stood, very quietly overlooking some sailmakers who were mending a topsail in the waist. Now and then he stooped to pick up a patch or save an end of the tarred twine, and otherwise might have been wasted. I think we'll have another chapter. Chapter 19? Yep. Chapter 19, The Prophet. I quite like that one. It was quite funny when Keekeg harpooned that spot of tar on the water. and Ishmael claiming that Kikeg was a pastor in the first congregational church. Chapter 19, The Prophet. That's Prophet, understand? Shipmates, have ye shipped in that ship? Kikeg and I had just left the Pequod and were sauntering away from the water, for the moment, each occupied with his own thoughts, when the above words were put to us by a stranger, who, pausing before us, levelled his massive forefinger, there you go, there's a massive forefinger, at the vessel in question. He was but shabbily apparelled in faded jacket and patched trousers, a rag of a... It's interesting how it's trousers. There's a few times the word trousers used rather than pants. Must be an older American word, trousers. Anyway, or maybe a local or maritime word. A rag of a black handkerchief investing his neck. A confluent smallpox had in all directions flowed over his face and left it the complicated, ribbed head of a torrent when the rushing waters have been dried up. Have ye shipped in her? He repeated. I'm going to give him a generic, kind of a seaman's accent for the moment until I know who it is, his character, or her, I suppose. That'll be his, won't it? Shipmates. Yeah, well, he repeated again. You mean the ship Pequod, I suppose, said I, trying to gain a little more time for an uninterrupted look at him. Aye, the Pequod, the ship there, he said, drawing back his whole arm and then rapidly shoving it straight out in front of him, with the fixed bayonet of his pointed finger darted full at the object there. Yes, said I, we have just signed the articles. Anything down there about your souls? About what? Oh, perhaps you haven't got any, he said quickly. No matter though, I know many chaps that haven't got any. Good luck to them. They are all the better off for it. A soul's sort of a fifth wheel to a wagon. What are you jabbering about, shipmate? Said I. He's got enough. Though to make up for the deficiencies of that sort in other chaps, abruptly said the stranger, placing a nervous emphasis on the word he. Kikeg, said I, let's go. This fellow has broken loose from somewhere and talking about something and somebody we don't know. Stop, cried the stranger. Ye said true, ye haven't seen old Thunder yet, have ye? Who's old Thunder? Said I again, riveted with the insane earnestness of his manner. Captain Ahab. What, the captain of the ship, the Pequod? Aye, some among us old sailor chaps, he goes by that name. You haven't seen him yet, have ye? No, we haven't. He's sick, they say, but he's getting better and will be all right again before long. All right again before long, laughed the stranger with a sullenly derisive sort of laugh. Look ye, and Captain Ahab is all right, then this left arm of mine will be all right, not before. What do you know about him? Did they tell you much about him? Say that. They didn't tell me much of anything about him. Only I've heard that he's a good whale hunter and a good captain to his crew. That's true. Yes, both true enough. But you must jump when he gives you an order. Step and growl and go, that's the word of Captain Ahab. But nothing about that thing that happened to him off Cape Horn not long ago, when he lay like dead for 3 days and nights. Nothing about that deadly scrimmage with the Spaniard afore the altar in Santa. Heard nothing about that, eh? Nothing about the silver calabash he spat into. And nothing about his losing his leg last voyage according to the prophecy. Didn't hear a word about them matters and something more, eh? No, I don't think you did. How could you? Who knows it? Not all Nantucket, I guess. But howsever mayhap, you've telled about that leg and how he lost it. Aye, you've heard of that, I dare say. Oh yes, that. Everyone knows almost. And he's only one leg, and that a Parmachetty took the other off. My friend, said I, what all this gibberish of yours is about, I don't know, and I don't much care, for it all seems to me that you must be a little damaged in the head. But if you are speaking of Captain Ahab, of that ship there, the Pequod, then let me tell you that I know all about the loss of his leg. All about it, eh? Sure you do? All? pretty sure. With a finger pointed and eye levelled at the peacock, the beggar-like stranger stood for a moment as if in a troubled reverie, then starting a little, turned and said, "You've shipped here, have you? Name's down on the papers? Well, well, what's signed is signed, and what's to be will be, and then again, perhaps it won't be after all." That's very poetic, isn't it? Anyhow, it's all fixed and arranged already, and some sailors or others must go with him, I suppose, as well as those as any other man. God pity him. Morning to ye, shipmates, morning. May ineffable heavens bless ye. I'm sorry I stopped ye. "Look here, friend," said I, "if you have anything important to tell us, out with it. But if you are only trying to bamboozle us, you are mistaken in your game. That's all I have to say." And it's said very well, and I like to hear a chap talk that way. "You're just the man for him, the likes of ye. Morning to ye, shipmates, morning. Oh, when you get there, tell him I've concluded not to make one of 'em." "Ah, my dear fellow, you can't fool us that way, you can't fool us. It is the easiest thing in the world for a man to look as if he had a great secret in him." "Morning to ye, shipmates, morning." "Morning it is," said I. "Come along, Keekeg. Let's leave this crazy man, but stop, tell me your name along, will you?" "Elijah." "Elijah," thought I. And we walked away, both commenting, after each other's fashion, upon this ragged old sailor, and agreed that he was nothing but a humbug, trying to be a bugbear. But we had not gone perhaps above 100 yards when, chancing to turn a corner, and looking back as I did so, who should I see but Elijah following us, though at a distance. Somehow the sight of him struck me so that I said nothing to Keekeg of his being behind, but passed on with my comrade, anxious to see whether the stranger would turn the same corner that we did. He did. And then it seemed to me that he was dogging us, but with what intent I could not for the life of me imagine. The circumstance, coupled with his ambiguous, half-hinting, half-revealing, shrouded sort of talk, now begat in me all kinds of vague wonderments and half-apprehensions, and all connected with the Pequod and Captain Ahab, and the leg he had lost, and the Cape Horn fit, and that silver calabash, and what Captain Peleg had said of him when I left the ship the previous day, and the prediction of the squat Tistig, and the voyage we had bound ourselves to sail, and 100 other shadowy things. I was resolved to satisfy myself whether this ragged Elijah was really dogging us or not, and with that intent crossed the way with Keekeg, and on that side of it retraced our steps. But Elijah passed on, without seeming to notice us, and this relieved me, and once more, and finally as it seemed to me, I pronounced him in my heart a humbug. End of chapter. Oh, Elijah. There's lots of biblical references, isn't there? So what do you reckon? What does Elijah know? What's going to happen? Interesting. You can comment in the comments down below what you're thinking about him and the previous scene on the boat. I do really like the way that it's written. Some of the language is just beautiful. Right, don't forget, make sure you subscribe to me. Tap onto my face down there in the corner, or it could be up there, I think, in the corner as well. Tap onto my face. Make sure you subscribe to me, and you can watch the other chapters of Moby Dick, and you'll be able to see other things as well, other YouTubes that I do, and find me on Twitter or Periscope at A9630. Thank you for watching, everybody. I'll see you next time. Have a nice, I was going to say have a nice Thursday, but it may not be that where you are, mightn't it? That's me, that's my Periscope coming out there, doing it live. Alright, thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye-bye, everyone.